Hmm.
Okay. So if you have any questions about the first reading we had today, this talk, or the chart, go ahead and raise your hand.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Oh, Karen Levine would like to focus on the chart for a minute. I assume she needs the one on that first page there.
This one, this chart?
Which one? You should be able to unmute.
There's a table and a chart, but I assume you mean the chart. Yeah, this keeps getting referred to, as you could see, over these two lectures.
Am I unmuted by chance?
Uh-huh.
You are.
Oh, okay. I'd like to make a comment on the chart there. The two lower loop lines, the knowing and the most finite form loop lines, these represent the evolution of the body and of the knowing, which would be consciousness, I assume. So these two represent us consciously going through the forms, and then above the Atma, it is what is real and continues regardless of this. It's there in all its oneness with God, and it's that particular one that goes up onto the path. Am I understanding that correctly? So Baba is saying that the human being is kind of transcended by the Atma, which goes up this path, but it still has a body, right?
Yeah,
the Atma is still in human form.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful.
Yeah, the Atma is the continuity there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It strikes me how Baba had even at this early stage completely worked out the divine theme. You know, he by the time he gets to God Speaks, it is really well refined in terms of the 10 states of God and so on. But it strikes me how much he was revealing that I thought was later on, that he had more developed it. But this seems fully developed to me.
Yeah. And so those three rows, Atma, knowing, and most finite, these are variants of this very same table in different language.
Right.
God, energy, Akash. Akash is the gross, energy is the subtle. Knowing correlates to energy, correlates to the subtle. Ignorance correlates to Akash, correlates to the gross. And knowledge, God, real. So we're getting essentially those same three, right? Do you guys all see that? It's not given as Darya or ocean, it's given as Atma, but that means Paramatma.
All right, Elizabeth.
Okay, on that chart. So I had a question also about knowing, and I'm wondering if this is, so really you see Atma, knowing, and most finite form in these developments. It looks like if you drew a line from one link down to the next, that they are synchronous, that they show the different stages, but just separated into three horizontal lines with those little spiral loops. But my question is about the knowing one. And the knowing, of course, is what he said was the ignorance, because it's not really the real knowing. And is that knowing and those levels as it goes toward that man in the circle, or the real self, is that what he's conceiving of as our expanding consciousness, or is it our expanding awareness of consciousness? Because I know there's a distinction between awareness and consciousness. It's very, very subtle.
Well, the word he uses is Chaitanya. and he differentiates between Chaitanya and consciousness are the same at the beginning and at the end, but in between in the journey, they're distinct from each other. So I think it's probably that. It's probably that Chaitanya.
And
Which
so
is-
how would you define Chaitanya again, conceptually and connotatively?
Yeah, I would characterize Chaitanya as consciousness as conditioned and colored by the stage of its development in the divine theme. So in evolution, it's consciousness moving through different degrees of instinct and so forth towards complete consciousness. And in involution, Chaitanya would be the complete human consciousness experiencing the higher modalities of the path. So it's kind of like, this could be an analogy. Let's suppose you're walking at night with a flashlight. You could say consciousness is the pure light itself, but Chaitanya is the light along with the vision of all that it illuminates at a different stage. Chaitanya is conditioned, colored consciousness. That's the best I can do.
So to me, that sounds like what Baba referred to in that footnote in God Speaks as the concept of awareness. So it's the growing awareness of the real light,
It could
which
be.
sounds the same as
Mhm.
Chaitanya. I mean, it just sounds like,
Well,
anyway.
Baba has very explicitly here linked knowing with Chaitanya. He explicitly identified them. This is a very big question, I would say, figuring out how Baba means the term knowing. So we're unpacking some of it. But this earlier table is very relevant. I mean, looking at that again, because here you have knowing, which is correlated with the movement, which is correlated with, it's like the God's unity, when it gets split by Pran and Akash, Pran expresses a likeness of the positive aspect of it and Akash the negative. Thus, knowledge on the Pran, you see this middle row here is Pran, right? You guys all follow that? That's movement. And the positive aspect, when you enter into the domain of the false, the positive aspect is knowing and the negative aspect is ignorance. So you're getting these pairs of opposites which mirror the knowledge and ignorance in the domain of the reality. I hope I'm not getting too confusing about this. So that's how you get these three, the real, and then this pair of opposites within the domain of the false. So that's one important connection about knowing. It's the Pran side, and the most finite is the Akash side, these being the fullness and the emptiness.
Okay, Karen Levine.
Yeah. So I wondered about the Atma spiral on that. How is that changing? I get that
Yeah.
we're our evolution of our, but I thought the Atma was constant.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And, Nadia and I, what can we do? We're just slaves of our sources. You see what our source does? There it is.
Mhm.
And if the source maker had asked me, I would say, make it a straight line for heaven's sakes. I know it is funny. Maybe it's just showing that these loops probably represent sanskaras. And maybe it's just expressing that the Atma gets bound in its consciousness by the sanskaras too. But it also could be a defect in the source diagram. That could be. You
No,
guys
I
all
like
see
that. I like that idea of its
Hmm.
boundness, and also,
Yeah.
if you think of like twining spinning a thread, and you
Yeah.
have the different plies, that the Atma is going with the Pran and Akash the whole way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what
Oh, I see it
is
here.
Hmm.
Can you wait? We have hands up yet. Can you raise your hand, Elizabeth, Ellen, sorry. Jim Wilson.
Okay, I like to think, and maybe it's an oversimplification, but Baba's using the word knowing or knowledge, capital K, where it is full God consciousness.
Yeah.
But knowing in the stage of evolution, we are only conscious of, although we're capable of being conscious of God, we are limited in what we are conscious of. So in the gross plane, we're conscious of the universe and all its forms. And then in the knowing phase, our consciousness is evolving until we reach a point where our consciousness now becomes fully evolved so that we can now be conscious of God and conscious of who we really are. But the problem is we have these samskaras, of course. And this is the process of having to unwind all these samskaras, the reverse samskaras, to be free from that. But the knowing, in my way of liking to think about this, is what we are actually conscious of. Is that an oversimplification or?
No, I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what Chaitanya seems to designate.
Yeah.
Consciousness as we experience it at various points in our journey.
Yeah. And what we are conscious of or aware of is that flashlight that you just talked about.
Right.
We're only aware of what that illuminates for us, depending on where our consciousness is. But consciousness is the overriding thing. There's nothing but consciousness in a sense.
You know, I'll just show you a flash ahead where we're going to come to this again. I hope I can quickly find it. Yeah, this one. This shows do you all see it? Page 272.
Can you expand it? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Can you focus on the chart?
Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
So mode of knowing, I think that amounts to Chaitanya. So this shows the qualitative change that Chaitanya undergoes. So this helps to illustrate what Chaitanya is and its relationship to consciousness. So it's finite instinct, and it comes as intellect in human form. And then on the planes, inspiration, revelation, insight, intuition, illumination, divine sight, realization. So that's the line of Chaitanya, which I think is probably closely related to this knowing thing that we're looking at. So that's a jump ahead.
Ellen, Van Ellen. You need to unmute. Oops. You need to unmute. There you go.
I was looking at this and thinking about the chart that shows the evolution in circles on the arc of smallest to largest with the different aspects developing, and what you just showed would show where Chaitanya had its own circle board, and I can't remember.
Is this an earlier chart?
This is the chart that Baba gave out in Mandali Hall. And it's an infinite intelligence with the development of the souls. I can't, my brain is doing the dropping things thing. Where the soul, there only starts with smaller circles and then develops different aspects as it goes along. The chart that you just showed hinted at that the Chaitanya doesn't appear until you get to fish.
Yes.
But that if these three are the ones that persist from the beginning, well, to some extent, because that didn't show knowing until fish. But anyway, I was thinking of these as being three aspects of the individual Atma. Not Atma, but
The
individual.
Jivatma, you could say the Jivatma.
Jivatma.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see how the whole prana and akash thing has been carried over into this. If you see the connections, because that middle line is linked with the pran, the bottom line with akash, and the top line is the real. So these three levels we got in the yesterday's last session's material and in that table are really being developed by him again.
Okay. All right, my turn.
Hmm.
You know, for me, the line for Atma with the spirals in it is it's more meaningful for me to have it as spirals than as a straight line, because it's a constant reminder of how Atma tracks with knowing and with the most finite. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding, and maybe it's really just my belief, is that the Atma is not aloof from our existence. In other words, there's the purposefulness of our experience is linked intimately with Atma, the fact that we're Atma.
There are places where Baba does characterize Atma as totally aloof, and but other places not so. But this seems to be talking about it in its participation in the journey of the whole soul.
Okay. Karen.
Yeah. And by the way, this is the most important source diagram, as you can see. We added in certain things. We added in the Om point here and the Om point there. And we put in the illustration of the human form just to, you know, develop the diagram a little bit.
So I liked, Ward, what you said about that. It's the Atma is bound with the prana and akash. It's realizing, right? So when we're done talking about this figure, I would like to look at the other previous table chart thing.
Sure.
It looked like it was the opposites.
Yeah, no, this is an important one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to dig into that one a little bit. What's like, what are those holes? Or I just am spatially trying to figure out.
This was just put in by Nadia as a interesting way of showing the opposites. Let's see where the original source is. 1 second. I guess we didn't put, because it's not a key, we didn't show the chart, the source of it. It was just probably just columns is all. So I wouldn't invest any great metaphysical significance in the circle.
Okay.
But, you know, we saw opposites earlier. You may recall, where did the opposites, I could quickly find where that came up. I can't find it quickly enough. Was it here? Yeah, here we go. See bottom left. The infinite has as its opposite term the finite. The light has as its opposite term the shadow. The yes has as its opposite term the no. The one has as its opposite term the innumerable. So this is, you know, developing, going back to that theme. And we've had prana and akash as the relative opposites. That seems to be the primordial opposites within the domain of the imagination, prana and akash. So pran consistently associates with the, how do we say it? There's the everything and the nothing with the real side of it, and akash with the illusory side of it, even though both prana and akash belong to the domain of the unreal. But these may be primordial opposites. They do seem to be. Anyway, anybody any comments on these opposites? Knowledge, so these are all equivalent. Knowledge, Paramatma, the infinite. Do you know the word Nirakar?
Mhm.
Akar is form and nir is without. And sakar, sa is with, and kar is akar is form. So with form, formful. And darya, and this is an interesting one. Darya is contrasted not with bubble or drop or anything like that, but with form or hollow space. So form and hollow space are correlated. Isn't that a curious one?
Yeah, Nirakar and Sakar appear a lot in infinite intelligences. part
Big
of-
terms,
Yeah. right.
big terms there. Yeah.
Elizabeth,
Hmm.
Okay, so replying to Ellen's question about the loops, you know, in God Speaks, those loops are shown and explained in chart 9 on the divine theme. And you
Right.
can see they go in two opposite directions. And then he displays it differently in chart 10 by showing, I think it's the red that shows the level of consciousness and the expanding consciousness. And the footnote I was talking about is on page 104 of the second edition, 1973 of God Speaks. And it reads, before attaining human form, there is consciousness, but not awareness. In sound sleep, there's neither consciousness nor awareness. Till the sixth plane, there is awareness. In the seventh plane, there is only consciousness. So it seems to me that Chaitanya has to do with this awareness concept, very similar to what Jim said earlier and probably other people, and that the consciousness is like complete full consciousness. Would you like to comment, Ward?
Yeah. Probably trying to work the relationship out with awareness is too hard for us because we don't have God Speaks here. But the point is noted. It could be. I know Kitty would talk a lot about awareness, and she kept, every time I saw her, she would ask me what I thought awareness was. Could be. But the term we really get here is Chaitanya. Yeah, so I guess I'm reluctant to try to go too far into that since we don't have the God Speaks book available here.
if Ward, if I could make a comment, for some of this, it trying to overlap things like God Speaks and so forth with this, take away the focus and kind of disrupts my understanding of what he's specifically getting at for the boys. So, I know it's kind of a chore to pull that together, but also I don't find it useful at this stage until I absorb the material from the book. Anyway.
These are certainly directions that study is going to go. At something like Miran or one of these workshops, we could pull up all the slideshows and try to work these things out more fully.
And as we go along with learning more about the book and actually getting the book, then we can undertake things like that.
I'm really sorry you guys don't have the book. I mean,
Yeah.
like where we have to keep flipping back to see this chart. It's so annoying. When you have the book, it's easy.
It's also hard on Zoom because you can't share both the charts and the text at the same time. Right? Those kinds of restrictions. But anyway, we'll do the best we can. I see Marianne Lucia has her hand up. What? Is it Lucia or Lucia? Lucia. Marianne.
Lesia is
Lucia.
how
Okay.
Dennis pronounced it.
Thank you.
Yes, my question is, Ward, in figure 12, is the most finite knowing and Atma paths, do they run concurrent or one after the other?
No, I think those are different levels of the structure of the Jivatma. So as someone was pointing out, these if you go horizontally, these are all different parts of the same Jivatma at different stages. So like 3 stone would correlate to knowing at that stage and Atma at that stage. So there's a horizontal movement right to left, and those are the 3 levels of a common structure of the Jivatma.
So do I understand you correctly? So wouldn't that be that they are running concurrently? It's just the
Yeah.
different levels of experience?
They are, right.
Okay,
Right.
great. Thank you.
It's one single movement. Yeah. Evolutionary movement.
Okay, thank
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. Ellen Van Allen. I want to call you Alan Van Ellen for some reason. I just can't help it. But go ahead.
You're
unmute.
doing an ulat on her, reversing her.
I've been called worse, Cassandra. So the Ward's response to Marianne's question gives is the reason that I brought up this chart, which shows
Yeah.
the different components of the
Mm.
Jivatma. And because I was concerned that the 3 lines could give the impression that these were 3 separate processes. And
Yeah.
whereas,
No, they're not.
thank you. That's
Yeah.
why I brought it up, Cassandra.
Very good.
Yeah, that chart that Ellen just showed is the most developed chart we have from Baba about the individuation process that occurs through the evolutionary process. This particular book doesn't go into that very much. There's a little bit on the structure of the false self, but not very much. We'll get to it a little bit later on.
Is there anyone else in the group here who has a question that they're too shy to ask? You can put it in the chat and I'll read it out for you if you want to do that. In the meantime, we have Karen Levine.
Yeah, and I just wanted to pursue that thought that you broached, a word about Sakar being equated with hollow emptiness.
Mm.
Can you talk about that at all? Because that's really intriguing.
Yeah. Well, this seems to form or hollow space.
And I'm just going to jump in with my
Shakar.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Does
ahead.
it have to do with latency or fine or anything like that? Like the space that the form is going to function in?
You know, I don't think so. I think it has to do with what the gross is. The gross is really emptiness and negation and hollowness. And that's very counterintuitive because to those of us gross conscious people, maybe most of you are way beyond there, but I'm down here in the gross. It seems not to be empty at all. It seems very substantial and solid, but in its real nature, it is emptiness. That's what the gross really is. And apparently form manifests there. And I guess maybe we're getting, somehow Buddhism comes up, a bit of this Buddhist, shunyata, the emptiness of all things.
Yeah.
Nagarjuna was the great exponent of that idea.
So my mind, when you said that, just goes to like the space between electrons in an atom, that kind of thing.
I think it has to do with matter itself, and form itself is inherently nothing. It's inherently empty.
Okay.
So why don't we?
I know it's a very puzzling. I'm not trying to give this is something that will really take a lot of deep thinking over the decades and centuries to come. So I can't pretend to give you an adequate glossing of it right now.
Well, we have Jim's hand up, and
Yeah.
then maybe after that we'll progress to the next section of the talk. So if anybody has any comments or questions?
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick comment. You know, the idea of the ocean, Baba usually refers to the drop in the ocean or the bubble.
Right.
And a bubble, of course, is hollow.
Yeah.
There's nothing inside. It's just the bubble So in a sense, the bubble is just hollow space with a
Yeah,
form
you know,
on
that
it.
could
Yeah,
be. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I like that.
Yeah,
Useful.
yeah.
So let's move on to other sections of this. Any,
Hey, can I make a comment real fast?
Mm.
Bob also talks about that bubble, but he says along the outside is something that holds it in, the boundary. So it's both hollow and boundary. And I've forgotten what he calls the boundary, but it's something different. Probably
I've
Ward.
had this thought about the bubble metaphor, that
Mm-hmm.
it's a good expression of prana and akash, because the surface of the bubble is actually the dropness of it, right? That's where the actual water is. So it's a likeness of the drop, you might say, whereas the inner part of it is emptiness, which is the akash. So I think it's a beautiful metaphor for prana and akash, actually.
Very good. And we have Ellen Kwiatkowski.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you talking about this formlessness and emptiness, and just I was just thinking about that, and like this goes back to something I kind of brought up the other day, which is like, so like if the electron is the most finite,
Mm.
and we are composed of electrons, and everything around us is, and everything on us, like we are actually, we think we are what we are, but we're really just that assemblage of electrons, which each one in and of itself is consciousness. I mean, is representative of a drop.
Yeah.
And so our consciousness is most evolved because we've got, I mean, all this coalesces around us because of our sanskaras.
Mm.
And we identify with it, but it's not really us because it's all it's all electrons, right? I mean, if you think, it's hard for me to explain what I'm picturing and thinking.
Well, I think the beginning of the first talk is where Baba addresses that, you know, in a metaphor of the ocean and the drop, right? Daria and the drop.
Because that's what form is emptiness, though,
Yeah.
because it's really that. I mean, it's really just all God, and it's all consciousness evolving. Or I'm not going to use the right terms because I've never studied infinite intelligence and all these things, but I think you get where I'm going, kind of.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really interesting. It blows my mind.
Thank you. And Cheryl, excuse me.
Yeah, among other things jumping out at me today, I find it interesting in the chart today, the different stages of consciousness are one electron, Baba wrote, 2 atom, 3 is stone, 4 is metal, 5 is vegetable, 6 is animal, and 7 is human. But in the past, what has been given out is gases, I have it in parentheses, then 1 stone, 2 metal, 3 vegetable. Here Bob is dividing it differently. 4 is worm, 5 is fish, 6 is bird in terms of evolution of form. And first, of course, the thrust of evolution of consciousness, then animal, and then human. So it's really interesting. So I was just wondering, Ward or anyone, if you could make a comment. So is electron equal to gases? But I don't think so, because that's a more complex.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so, because it's more complex arrangement of electrons to create gases, but just found it interesting.
This is not following the 7 kingdoms of evolution that he's given in other places.
Right.
You know, when the book is actually available to you, let me just show you the part of it that really goes into this a lot. This is in the supplement. Sorry, I'm having to scroll through pages because, all right, here we go. Yeah. themes and textual cruces in the story of evolution. This goes into all sorts of questions of evolution, like the one that you're mentioning. Treatment of the kingdoms of evolution and the transitional species that are often in our culture called Barzaks, goes into that. It also goes into the 5 turns. We haven't reached that yet, but we soon will, where the human form undergoes 5 turns. And so this goes through this text, and also God Speaks and Mere Message and Ramju's book in 1933 and Ghani's rewrite of it in the Meher Baba Journal. So this is a very, by far the 4 elements, they're relevant to evolution too, as we'll soon see. So anyone interested in this, I would really call your attention to that Appendix 2 when it is available. Yeah.
And at one point also, Ward, you went ahead to a chart ahead, and not this one, but not the previous one, which we keep seeing, but there was one you scrolled ahead and there was something in there I wanted to write down. If you know what you scrolled forward to, it was about 15 minutes ago.
I don't remember.
Okay, I put it in the text, but Cassandra misunderstood and thought I was talking about the chart you just showed. Okay, well,
yeah, this is kind of like juggling, you know, I'm seeing too many things at one time.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah. But I would like to see if there's, you know, more that we've read that people want to talk about, or do we want to stay on those charts for the rest of the time?
Yeah, we have this thing of Baba's, these 2 things. So this one talks about in Atma, there's knowing and finite form space. You see, Baba is correlating space with finite form. And when consciousness arises, knowing and space manifest. This is Prana Nakash. And when manifested, the space becomes most finite, etc. So all of this is, I mean, clearly, this is where Baba wrote this out, actually, in his own handwriting. He's writing in very quickly in a very abbreviated kind of condensed form. Space is opposite to Darya, right? And Darya is ocean. So he's making those as opposites. Again, it's kind of and space is Akash or Pokol. So finite is equal and opposite to infinite, opposite to the infinite. Finite and the infinite means that they're the pairings here. Atma is infinite, so naturally the first form is most finite. So Baba is explaining here why it is that the first form is opposite to the infinite Paramatma. This is contrariety in God Speaks, you know, that whole theme.
Yeah. And, you know, I got to tell you, Ward, just a comment, reading Baba's handwriting is such a thrill. Hearing the words, reading them off the page, reading it from Baba's handwriting gives it a whole other level of thrill. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I'm glad you brought this contrariety thing up, Ward, because I was thinking about that. How when Baba is talking about all these opposites, the play of opposites, there's that wonderful part in Infinite Intelligence where Baba refers to the darkness as the very existence of the light. And I think this is true of all the opposites. It is through the opposite that we get to know the real. You know, that, I mean, how could you know pleasure if you never knew pain? That kind of idea. So all of these opposites that appear in duality are necessary. Ignorance is necessary for our enlightenment and all these various things. We don't tend to think of it as something that's actually, although it's a negative, is actually helping us to arrive at the other side of the, you know, you were saying about going from 1 to 2, but then you have to go from 2 to 1. You know,
right.
Eventually we have to be 1 again. So these opposites are a wonderful clarification of what we are going through in this journey of ours.
The opposites spread the universe of experience for us.
Right.
Otherwise, we would be just confined to a single point and couldn't experience anything. Opposite spreads it out. And when we hear about the everything and the nothing, well, we are not in a position to know what the everything with the capital E is, but it's through the opposites that we get an idea of it. So Prana and Akash give us, within our false imaginative domain, our experience of what God and the nothing are.
Yeah, spreading
like-
it out like in my pizza dough theory.
Mm.
I'm sorry.
It kind of ties in too with the idea that we were talking about earlier, how the swirl of the Atma, which is eternal and so on, relates to the idea that we are really dreaming. You know, the Atma is not affected by the dream, but the Sakar aspect is affected. But we can recognize that after we have a dream, we realize nothing really happened. We were just dreaming it. And that's kind of what the Atma is. He's just dreaming along till he finally wakes up.
So the tiger comes into the show and wakes up. Yeah.
All right, Elizabeth.
Ward, you talked about this a little bit. I have a hard time with the idea that the Akash, the Pokal, the nothing, is related to form and gross. How can something of nothing be form? It seems very paradoxical, contradictory, doesn't make sense. It's totally irrational. So I would love insight into that.
Yeah. Well, he definitely has said that. It's also in the Tiffin lectures. In fact, he correlates emptiness with matter, of all things. I know it's very counterintuitive to gross conscious people.
Well, you know what worked for me was that the one we're going to get to later, where he draws the circle, and at the ends of the circle are the opposites, rather than being in a straight line. They're right next to each other. But that is like
the chat.
That's just like the vastness of our lack of being able to comprehend is contained in that little space between the two.
Yeah, you know, this is a question we can keep alive as we continue to read through all of it. I know it is very, it's a paradox. It's very paradoxical, but it seems to be fundamental. Baba is associating the gross with emptiness and also with form. And let's keep this question alive as we continue to read through the book. I think maybe it'll help.
So related to that, then the concept of the void must come into play.
The void.
Like in the beginning there was a void, and when you're in the beyond state, there's some discussion of that.
Well, Baba in God Speaks uses the void there. I don't think that's the same thing as the hollow or pokal, because the hollow or pokal is not the infinite nirvana state. It's the part of a pair with prana and akash. Yeah.
Well, before we run out of time, can we move ahead a few pages and see? Yeah,
we do have this whole second lecture. And in the second lecture, Baba really starts explaining evolution now. And the evolution of consciousness. He seems to be focusing on, he doesn't use the word consciousness, but the expansion of knowing, the expansion of, from most finite to finite. He gives that analogy of looking through the a piece of cardboard through holes of different sides. Some of you guys remember the eye and the lion in Infinite Intelligence? It's the very same idea. It's exactly the same idea. So now he's starting to talk about how consciousness expands, and he brings sanskaras in, actually. They start to come in. I don't think he mentioned them before. He must have said something about them to the boys, because he just brings them up as, brings sanskaras up as though they'd already know what it's about. Yeah. Knowledge in the human form knows knowing and ignorance fully. Isn't that an interesting sentence? Knowledge, you see, this knowledge is the reality of God, and knowing and ignorance are the pairs of opposites that arise from it.
Can you zoom in on that or just? that
Oh yeah,
section?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Progressing here, evolutionary theory. At length, the Atma in human form gains full knowledge of the universe, or ignorance. The universe is ignorance. That is, the Atma in human form completely knows ignorance. Before the human form, it only knew it partially, but now it knows it completely. To repeat, knowledge in the human form knows knowing and ignorance fully. See, so these pairs of Atmas, the Pran and the Akash, the subtle and the gross. And here in the next paragraph, he mentions the attainment of the human form as a precondition to God realization. I mean, we all know that from later books, but here he's quite early on, he's telling them that. Anyway, I'm just looking at sentences. Anybody got anything?
That last paragraph where he says the poor thing.
Yeah.
But the sanskaras that limit Atma acquired in its previous forms force it, the poor thing, to know ignorance.
He makes that comment. Didn't he make it already about Ishwar at some point?
Yeah, poor fellow.
Ishwar, the poor fellow.
Twice he calls him poor fellow.
Here you have the perspective of the God man, you know. Can't you imagine Baba, you know, saying that, gesturing that?
Well, especially with the boys. That he was talking to.
Yeah, later on he says, these you chaps and this chap. He uses that British expression, chap. Yeah, so here he's been giving a picture of evolution as a progression from the most limited to the expanded through the course of evolution, and then saying that you need to do the ulat thing. He's giving a summary of the entire divine theme. Ulat is reverse. You have to reverse all those sanskaras acquired earlier. And thus he brings up the Sadguru and the tiger. You know that analogy where you're taking, back in those days, driving a car was fun. So I think Rustam, Adi's brother, had a car, so they'd go on joy rides. Nowadays, does anybody do joy rides? It's sort of like traffic, but it was kind of fun. But then how to get you out of that dream, suddenly a tiger appears and you're so terrified you wake up. So he's using that to illustrate the reverse, the ulat. So by the end of this lecture, he's kind of summarized the entire divine theme.
Marianne? Go ahead and unmute.
I think it's interesting that he's equating with waking up on the previous page with the tiger. When the tiger comes into your dream and you're so terrified you wake up, that the jolt that takes you from being asleep to being awake is a terrifying experience. You know, it's not a blissful experience. It's
It's not a
terror.
sweet kiss. He doesn't
No.
give you a kiss on the lips and you wake up.
No, it's like sheer terror. That's not too encouraging.
Well, there is. It's sort of like you get complacently attached to, we get complacently attached to our dreams, even if they're unpleasant, you know, you just kind of don't want to leave your misery.
Right.
You know, we human beings are like that, or our happiness or our misery. We're attached to this alternation within the dream, and there has to be something that jolts us so that we wake up.
And then the
That-
last page of of the second lecture,
Yeah.
where he talks about the payment, you know,
Yeah.
even meaning of, you know, that very powerful, because at the very beginning of the whole lecture,
Yeah.
Baba says love. It's all
Right.
about love. So he's here. It's beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
the development.
means love.
What was the term he used? Create love. He-
Create prem. Yeah, the very first lecture, he used the same figure about if you want to see yourself, you need to get a mirror. Remember that one? And to get a mirror, you have to go to a shopkeeper. But the shopkeeper isn't just going to give you a mirror, you got to pay. And what does the Sadhguru want as payment? Love. So notice at the end of the lecture, he's coming back to this theme. He usually does it in one way or another. But I love this Marvadi thing. You know, in America, you wouldn't be familiar with this, but in India, everybody knows Marvadis. They're really sharp, ruthless businessmen, Gujaratis. They have tons of money and they just plunder you. They don't cheat you. They're just such ruthless businessmen that you come out of the interaction without a penny left.
So they
he's
don't
calling
steal
this,
your money, they weasel
Yeah.
it out of you.
they weasel it out of you. They're such a business that you're just the shirt off your back. So Sadhgurus are like that.
So isn't that the Sadhguru's job? You know, is to
Yep.
take every last cent that you have.
That's right. That's
Right.
right. That's right, isn't it?
It's like
Yeah.
when Baba says, don't ask me for my blessing or I will destroy you.
But
And
apparently,
he also says, ask me for your heart's desire and I will teach you how to live without it.
Wow, good.
but the Marvadis do give the goods.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's, yeah,
Strip you, but they give the goods.
you gotta pay.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of winding down now. Unless there are any other questions about the text, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. Are we at the end there of the second?
That was the end of that second lecture. So
lecture?
you
Okay.
notice how he's really moved. He's moved on from the prana nakash creation of the universe thing. And now he's really gotten to the evolution of consciousness. And we're going to get more of this.
Well, I'll
let's
give you a
look in-
challenge, Ward.
Yeah.
Can you sort of summarize in the next few minutes the movement from the first talk up through this talk? There's a challenge for you.
Very first talks, two talks were kind of introductory in a way, especially the second one, which talked about, you know, Shariat, Tariqat, Marifat, Hakikat, the levels of the experience of truth. And I think he was sort of introducing the boys to the theoretical understanding that the journey to God is a journey to higher levels of knowledge. But he really started the series with this one, the fifth, sixth, you know, with starting to give the theoretics of the ocean and bubbles. And so he's giving a basic ontology about God and drop souls and drop souls. And then he really began to develop the ocean, wave, and bubbles metaphor in this one. to establish what those figures mean. And here in this one, he began to give some astronomical stuff. It's like in that lecture, those 2 lectures or so, he's like spreading the menu of the different figures he's going to be using. The 7 ranges of worlds, which we're going to come back to, the opposites down here, the infinite and the finite and so forth. And at the end of this one, he comes to the topic of lights and light globes. So these are some of the fundamental ways of conceptualizing his topic with the reality of God, the drop soul, the body, the form, and so forth. So he's kind of introducing the vocabulary that he's going to use. Then he begins to do some more of this astronomical stuff, articulating the first, the idea that a world is like a wave bubble. So we have wave bubbles and drop bubbles. That whole notion is present. But it's really here at this point in this lecture that he starts to getting into his creation narratives. Now he's given us a lot of the basic vocabulary. He can refer to those things when he wants, with movement and space. And that becomes really the focus for a bit here. This is his creation narrative, the Pran and Akash creation narrative, how they explaining how what they are and how they clash. And in these next lectures, he's drawing, here we have some more opposites on this page, but he starts to bring in, by the way, here's knowing. I wanted to show this earlier. Do you see this figure? Knowledge, and then you have knowing, and out of that, Pran and Akash and all of that. And with this one, he starts to bring a whole series of these terms into correlation with each other. The ocean, the movement, and the emptiness, the knowledge, the knowing, and the ignorance. He starts to really bring knowledge in a lot, as you saw today. God, Pran and Akash, the real, the subtle, and the gross. So there are a whole system of correlations that he's brought into connection with this Pran and Akash narrative. And today we see him starting to introduce the divine theme in these 2 lectures, the entire journey of the soul from the beginning to the end, which we didn't have before. So he's moved on in the divine theme. And okay, in the future lectures, he's going to continue developing and bringing up new topics.
Well, why don't we say the Beloved's Prayer together? I see there's a few more hands, but I'm going to end the recording in a few minutes. So if you go ahead and unmute yourselves and let's say the prayer, and then we'll take more questions. Beloved God, help us all
to love you more and more
and more.
and more and more,
Yet
still yet more. We become worthy of union with you.
help us
all
all
to hold fast
Bhavas
Bhavas Dhamma
Very
till
end.
the very end.
Avatar, man,
Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Thank you all, especially our wonderful readers, Jai Baba and
All
Ward.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Jai Baba.
All right.